Hey guys, tonight we will step out onto cooling sand that still holds a blush of day and listen for the hush of an oasis that knows your footsteps by heart. Palm fronds glint in early starlight, water murmurs from a stone lip, and crickets keep a lazy rhythm you can breathe with. It's soothing, though, let's be honest, if you tried to trek across the Sahara alone tomorrow, you probably wouldn't survive this, so we'll keep it as a safe little bedtime adventure. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing our map of sleepy travelers grow. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. If your pillow is ready and your shoulders want to drop, perfect. The oasis is patient and will meet you at the pace of your breath. You trudge at twilight along a ripple of soft dunes, the sky thinning from copper to violet as if someone rinsed the day in a clay bowl. The air cools your cheeks. Ahead, the Garamantes Oasis reveals itself with a quiet sigh, a fringe of date palms like a dark choir, and beneath them the scent, green and peppery, the smell of shade itself. Sand gives way to a trodden path. Underfoot, tiny shells crunch, fossil whispers that this was sea once. Low mud brick walls hold neat beds of barley and onions, while palm shadows stripe the dust like bars of a gentle song. A reed basket lies on its side to dry. Beside it, a brass oil lamp catches a last thread of light and blinks like a sleepy gold eye. At the first fringe of shade, you pause. Fronds tick with the sound of pages being thumbed. Beside the path, a shallow channel runs with unassuming confidence, a silver seam threading the gardens. Somewhere upstream, stone and patience make this possible. You promise yourself to learn how before night fully arrives. A child's voice chirps. From a low doorway, a girl in a teal scarf lifts her palm and calls a greeting you don't know, but instantly understand. Her grandfather follows, tunic the color of turmeric dust, beard like cloud. They offer a wooden cup. The first sip is cool enough to make your teeth hum. Then a date, sticky at the edge, dark honey at the center, teaches your tongue new patience. Walk slow, the grandfather advises. Not because you'll get lost, but because the oasis meets you at the pace of breath. You match his rhythm. He taps the channel wall with his toe and nods toward pale crescents cut into the mud brick at intervals, gates for sharing, a timetable written in clay. Water likes fairness, he says. The pleat at his eye corner suggests the line is older than both of you. Courtyards open as you pass. In one, women spread palm fibers to dry. In another, a boy smooths wet clay onto a jar. Smoke lifts from a clay oven. Flatbread blisters in polite bubbles. Someone laughs at a joke you don't catch, and you laugh anyway, because ease is a language your body remembers. The girl walks a step ahead, proud to guide you. She points to a rope belt hanging from a trunk, a climber's loop burnished by use. Later, she says, if you were brave. You raise an eyebrow. She smirks. Her grandfather leads you to a low square where mats lash to posts, making a floating ceiling of shade. This is the market, he explains, where prices drift with the mood of the afternoon, and gossip is both currency and chorus. On a cloth lie dates at different stages, fresh like amber petals, half-dried like soft leather, and fully dried like small knuckles of sweetness. A vendor presses one of each into your palm and instructs you to learn their names with your tongue. Across the square, another vendor buffs a brass lamp with a twist of wool until it throws back a patient, buttery gleam. You catch your reflection, grainy, a touch travel-worn. In the hush that follows, you hear the oasis heartbeat. Water moving where it's told, hands tending without hurry, shade building quiet architecture overhead. You thank your hosts. The grandfather gestures down the line of palms where the channel disappears into a darker seam. If you want to understand us, go where the water is born. He means underground, you guess, somewhere the desert can't bully its way in. The girl tucks the bead basket into the crook of your arm, as if you've owned it forever, then slides the wick of the lamp into your fingers with a conspiratorial grin. For later, she whispers. The path bends toward the murmuring mouth of night. You step forward, breathing with the grove, carrying coolness on your skin and sweetness on your tongue, ready to follow the silver seam to its quiet beginning. The path keeps its soft promise, curving deeper under the palms until light becomes a lace you wear across your shoulders. Your footprints pair with older ones, camel pads like folded crescents, bare heels that kiss the sand and lift without fuss, a child's zigzag sprint, stuttered by laughter you can still hear. The grove edits the wind into whispers. Fronds braid shadows across the ground, and every step sounds like a page turning gently inside a quiet book. At your elbow, the reed basket rides easy, carrying a borrowed feeling of belonging. The brass lamp bumps your wrist, polite as a reminder. Later, when night takes its time, you'll want a small circle of gold to think by. For now, water does the talking. The channel narrows to a thoughtful thread and branches into rills the width of your palm, each one heading off like a tidy sentence to a thirsty root. Where a farmer has pressed a knob of clay, the water pauses. Where he lifts it, the water glides on as if remembering an appointment. You kneel to watch the current. It is not rushing, not eager, just sure. The surface puckers around a stray leaf and mends itself without complaint. In the mud beside the rill, someone has pressed fingertip marks in a neat row, the day's schedule written in a code only patient hands can read. You test the coolness. It folds around your skin the way shade folds around silence. Behind you, a frond pricks softly like a tongue, approving your curiosity. "Eat," says a voice you've not yet met. A woman with salt-gray hair and forearms strong from weaving steps out from the dapple, presses a date into your palm, and closes your fingers over it like she's protecting a secret. The fruit is sun-warm and sticky at the seam. You bite, and sweetness arrives with no agenda. Soft as a yes, caramel leaning toward fig, a sigh of flowers hiding underneath. She nods at your expression, amused. "First of the day," she says, and then tilts her head at the rills. First sip to the roots. You walk together, your steps settling into the groove of hers. She points with her chin to notches in the mud brick, little gates that look like smiles. "Families share by the notch," she explains. 2 notches for the eastern garden at sunrise, 1 at noon for the barley, 3 in the cool for the dates. She doesn't count on fingers, she counts on the breeze, the slant of light, the way the palms breathe. You learn, she adds, side-eye kind but teasing, or your onions scold you. You promise your future onions you'll pay attention. A palm rises ahead like a patient tower. Around its trunk hangs a rope belt, the same loop the girl showed you, shiny where hands have worried it smooth. "We climb when the air is soft," the woman says, touching the belt with a thumb that has learned every knot by heart. Love but organized. She unlatches a little basket of chalky pollen, taps it so a pale cloud puffs and vanishes like a sneeze of moonlight. You imagine the climb, toes in the notches, breath steady, the hush from the fronds like applause that no one needs to hear to keep going. A gecko flashes across the path, tiny feet writing quick commas in the dust. Somewhere a goat airs a complaint that fades into agreeably chewing sounds. You pass a courtyard where mats are strung like sails between posts, and men sit cross-legged, mending a leather water skin with thin stitches so close they look like whispers sewn side by side. The woman calls to them. They lift 2 fingers in greeting, then return to work without the rush that makes mistakes. At a split in the channel, she shows you the trick. Tilt a flat stone and the current decides differently. Tilt back and it remembers the old way. No shouting, she says of the water. It prefers manners. You think of your days outside this grove, how often you try to push everything faster, louder, and you feel something in your chest choose a cooler path. Sand tries its old prank and sneaks into your sandal. You stop, shake it out, and she grins. It collects travelers, she says, souvenirs for the dune. Your guide, she still hasn't offered a name, and somehow that fits, leads you into a shaft of fuller light where young palms rise in careful rows. At each base, the earth is mounded into small basins to keep the water lingering, the way a friend keeps you at the door with one more story. Every ring of earth is a promise, she says. We learn to make promises you can keep. She presses another date into your hand, then a second for later that will, let's be honest, probably not make it to later. When you bite again, sweetness answers the thirst you didn't want to admit you'd brought with you. Past a low wall, the rill hums under a tiny bridge of reeds the width of your palm. Children have laid them there, a little engineering game, a confidence shared. You can cross small things with small things. She crouches and lifts one reed, then lays it back more carefully than before. If you can be gentle, she says, you can be stronger longer. Above, fronds wave the idea down like a benediction. The shade deepens as the grove thickens, each trunk wrapped in old leaf bases like a mailed sleeve. You trail your fingertips along the roughness, feeling the record of seasons stacked one over the other. The air is warmer here, but softer, as if the grove breathes on you to say, keep going, nothing sharp ahead. Water talks in murmurs. Your footsteps keep company with your breath. You notice you've stopped trying to fill the silence. The silence seems perfectly capable of filling you. When you and the woman part at a crossway, hers to a courtyard where bread will puff like friendly moons, you to the darker path where the channel slips underground, she touches the reed basket, then the lamp. Useful, she says, not just the objects. You too. You smile back in the language of people who find things after thinking they were lost, a little surprised, a little relieved. Then you move on, souls writing easy letters in the sand, as the palms whisper your name the way water spells patience across the face of every garden. You turn at a low gate where the channel slows to a respectful bow, and there they are again. The grandfather in turmeric, the girl in teal, and a courtyard that looks like a square of held breath. A woven palm mat shades half the space. A fig tree leans in with gossiping leaves. Along one wall, jars cool in a shallow trough where the water lingers like a guest who knows they're wanted. The girl pats the threshold, and you remember to pause. Left foot back, right hand to heart. A small nod of thanks to a house that is about to carry your tiredness for you. She grins. You remember manners, she says, which is generous because you've learned them about 6 seconds ago. The grandfather taps a stool and you sit. He pours water into a clay cup that smells faintly of rain and dust. "Take with both hands," he says, "so you can't argue with anyone while you drink." He demonstrates, exaggeratedly serious, lips pursed, as if water might be listening for propriety. You mimic him. The water is cold enough to tell your tongue a bedtime story. A plate of dates arrives, soft, sun-scarred, glossy, carried by a woman with a scarf the color of late afternoon. She presses 3 into your palm. "One for thirst, one for strength, one for sweetness," she says, sealing your fingers around them like she's locking in a promise. You bite the first, and strength pretends to wait its turn, then sneaks in anyway. The girl teaches you greetings, how to ask about the health of someone's mother, even if you've never met her, how to say, "Enough shade," as if shade were soup and you can ladle more. You practice the cadence, the resting kindness of it, the way the palms of your hands seem to become part of the language. Your accent makes the grandfather's eyebrows dance with private entertainment. He prizes your effort like it's a rare shell. Every mistake is a chance for a joke, and nobody hurries to finish laughing. In the courtyard, a small daily choreography unspools. Shoes nest politely by the door. A broom of palm ribs sweeps sand into a tidy dream of a dune. A cat pours itself into a patch of sun, blinks once, and appoints you assistant to its nap. The grandmother, there's no mistaking her rank, she moves like comfort with elbows, sets down a brass lamp and picks up your borrowed one. She turns the wick with the smallest pinch. The flame answers with a soft round yes. "Wicks like patience," she says, and you catch the echo of the channel's lesson. Water prefers manners. Flames prefer attention. Humans prefer each other when everyone is gentle first. Bread arrives, flat, puffed, blistered with small moons. The rule, the girl says, is right hand for tearing and passing, left hand for cradling your plate and your talking. If you argue, she adds deadpan, bread walks away. You test this by teasing the grandfather about the rope belt hanging from a nail. Does he still climb? He sways his hands side to side. "I climb when my knees forget to count to 40, he says. The grandmother smirks. His knees forget often. Laughter flips the mat's shade from pale to warm. They show you the house's quiet map. Sleeping mats roll like scrolls along the wall until night inks them open. Water jars stand on the low bench, clay cool against clay. A palm fiber sieve hangs beside a shallow bowl of dates that are halfway to becoming syrup. Thick, glossy, almost a sheet of amber you could write on with a thumbnail. The girl teaches you to pit a date by pinching the seam and teasing the stone out whole, a skill you know will make future friends sigh at picnics. The grandmother dunks a piece of bread in the syrup and tucks it into your hand as if good sense could be applied like balm. It tastes like a small holiday kissed the inside of your mouth and left without taking anything. Neighbors drift in as if the courtyard is the tide and they are shells persuaded by the moon. A boy brings a goatskin stitched earlier, proud as a sunrise. A woman sets down a basket of fresh palm ribs for weaving. You are introduced and introduced again until you collect names the way your sandals collect the day. Each greeting is a check-in on shade, water, and mothers. The courtyard holds all those answers the way the basin at each palm holds the rill. The grandfather, noticing the reed basket at your side, lifts it and inspects the weave. He flicks a strand with his fingernail, boing, like a tiny lute, and nods. "This one can carry stories," he says. You inquire about the proper cargo. He pretends to think very hard. Dates, certainly. Bread, obviously. Small secrets if you tie the mouth. Large worries only if you cut a hole in the bottom so they fall out as you walk. The courtyard approves with soft cuckles. You promise to try the whole trick. A boy pours tea from so high that the stream turns to silk. Mint shivers in the glass. First cup is bitter, he announces solemnly. Second, strong. Third, sweet. You take the first, and it edits your tongue, cutting the day to fit the evening. The second steadies your back. The third tells your shoulders they can stop pretending to be mountains. Between sips, talk wanders. Harvest dates, the caravan rumored for dusk, whose turn it is to mind the goat who argues with doors. Every topic is watered fairly, 2 notches at sunrise, 1 at noon, 3 in the cool, the conversation's own little schedule. When it's your turn to offer a story, you tell a small one, about sand in a sandal, about a reed bridge laid by children, about how a woman with salt-gray hair adjusted a single reed the way people adjust each other's days. The grandmother listens with her head tilted and summarizes your tale into a proverb you wish you could embroider. If you can be gentle, you can be strong longer. The courtyard repeats it to itself once, the way you repeat a new word to make it less shy. Before you go, the grandfather shows you how to tuck your sleeves before washing, how to let water arrive to your hands instead of chasing it, how to shake off drops with gratitude so the soil gets the story too. The girl touches the brass lamp, now cool. Tonight, she says, we'll walk to where the water is born. You nod. You've been moving toward that since the first sip. As you stand, the fig leaves tangle a little sun and let it go. Shade leans in to kiss your cheek. You wave a right-handed goodbye, slip into your sandals, light now somehow, and step back to the path where fronds keep time and the village breathes you in like a familiar, welcome night breeze. You glide back toward the square where mats lash to poles and make a roof of traveling shade. The afternoon is settled into its soft exhale. The sun steps back like a courteous guest, and under this drifting ceiling, the market loosens its shoulders. It isn't grand, no marble, no shouting auctioneers, just the sound of sandals, low voices, and the easy arithmetic of trade. You slip into the current, reed basket tucked at your side, brass lamp warm against your wrist like a sleepy coin. Shade is the first stall. It hangs in swatches, woven fronds stitched with cord, patched, repatched, each rectangle throwing down a lake of cool that people wade through without getting wet. When a corner loosens, a boy in a turmeric vest climbs a palm rib ladder and ties it again, humming something that sounds like the market's own heartbeat. Light freckles the ground, frond shatters shake like fish scales. You step into a denser patch and feel your thoughts quiet, as if shade were a gentle librarian with perfect timing. To your left, reed baskets stack like nested moons. The vendor, broad-shouldered, teal turban wound like a well-told tale, tests a rim with his thumb. For dates, he says, tapping a tight weave. For bread, he says, showing a softer mouth. For secrets, he adds, holding up one that whistles when he turns it. You grin, remembering the grandfather's advice about cutting a hole so heavy worries fall through. The vendor hears the smile and nods like you've just ordered exactly the right size of invisible. Across the aisle, a woman buffs brass lamps with a loop of wool until each one carries a small sun in its belly. She holds your borrowed lamp up to judge its mood. Stubborn, she declares affectionately, and runs the cloth around the rim until your reflection is a polite ghost. Wicks like patience, you offer. She laughs, a clear bell. Patience buys the best shine, she agrees, and tucks a wick packet into your palm without counting coins. Consider it interest on future kindness. The date sellers call softly, more suggestion than sales pitch. 3 trays sit in progression, fresh, half-dried, fully dried. You lean in. The fresh ones glow like amber rain. The half-dried have a supple give, skins pleated like kind eyebrows. The dried are small and firm, sweetness compressed to the density of a promise. A woman cracks one open to show a seam of sugar crystals. These like travelers, she says. Less water, more road. You think of your future self hours from now, grateful for a pocket full of small suns. Barter here is a conversational art, not a competition. A basket might be a handful of onions plus a story. 2 lamps might be last month's goatskin repairs plus a favor owed since the wind took a roof mat and 3 neighbors caught it together. You watch a man in a saffron sash trade a string of fish, salt-dried, curled like commas, for a pouch of date syrup. The vendor adds a pinch of cardamom to the pouch for luck, which is how spices travel, tucked into generosity. You try a bargain for a slender basket, your haggling accent as heavy as your sandals were earlier, and everyone treats it like an adorable baby goat learning stairs. The final price is a joke you are allowed to be the punchline of, and somehow you still feel you won. A small drama flickers. A girl in teal, your earlier guide's friend, fumbles a palm leaf coin purse, and a few cowrie shells scatter and skitter toward the cistern. You step without thinking, the way a rill steps toward a thirsty root, and catch the nearest 2 with the toe of your sandal. A boy traps another with a reed, laughter chasing the rest. When the shells are corralled, the girl bows too deeply, and you bow back too deeply, and the market breathes a pleased little, "Oh." The brass lamp woman pronounces the incident paid forward and presses a half-dried date into your hand as receipt. At the square's edge, a man sorts climbing belts, checking knots with a frown like a stern uncle who secretly bakes cakes. He demonstrates the foot loop, heel against bark, the comfortable bite of rope. Climb when the air is kind, he instructs, echoing your earlier lesson. Male blossoms to female crowns, love, but organized. He ties the belt around your waist just long enough to imagine the climb's measured courage, then unties it with a pat as if to say, later. You pause at a stall where palm ribs become brooms. The maker aligns them until the fan looks like a quiet sun. He binds the handle with strips of dyed fiber that leave your fingers stained with faint turmeric and teal when you test the weight. For courtyards, and for the corners of a mind. He sweeps a square of dust you didn't notice existed, and the ground looks immediately more polite. You wonder what else inside you could be coaxed into order with 3 slow strokes and a patient knot. The grandfather appears at your elbow, like a reminder not to overpay with eagerness. He points out the vendor whose scales favor customers by 2 date stones, tradition's built-in kindness. He steers you to a carpet spread with tools, curved knives for trimming off dead frond bases, little scoops for the rills, a triangular trowel the size of your palm. If you carry one tool, carry the one that helps water remember where it wanted to go. You buy the trowel, pretending you will use it on actual irrigation and not just on the messy edges of your day. As the sun tilts, the shade roof slides a step. Poles are nudged, knots whispered tighter. A breeze lifts the mats like a slow applause. Tea returns, first bitter, then strong, then sweet. The 3rd cup tastes faintly of dates and everyone's good humor. Stories braid themselves into the afternoon. a caravan rumor, a palm that produced ridiculous amounts of fruit after someone apologized to it. The market agrees that apologies are excellent fertilizer. A goat that learned to open gates and was consequently elected small mayor of mischief. When your reed basket is holding exactly what it should, one slender basket tucked inside like a whispered secret, a pouch of date syrup and your wick packet, and the new trowel, the grandfather nods with final sale satisfaction. Shade is the roof, but people are the house. You look around, lamp-bright eyes, sugar-sticky fingers, calloused hands passing calm like a pitcher of water. The market is not a place, it is a temperature of heart. You step out from under the mats and the sun feels easy again, as if it too has been cooled by the day's barter. On your way toward the line of palms that hides the underground veins, someone calls after you. Remember, don't shout at the water. You lift the trowel and salute. The brass lamp bumps your wrist, gentle as a heartbeat, and the reed basket settles against your hip like a friend matching your stride. You breathe in dates and palm dust and warm brass, and the path ahead smells like a story that has already decided to end well.
Past the market's last ripple of laughter, the path narrows to a seam where palms crowd close and the channel tucks itself under a clay lip. A lanky teen in a teal headscarf leans on a shovel and lifts his chin in hello, the universal greeting of people who are already halfway through helping you. You came to see where it breathes, he says, and taps a circle of packed earth with his heel. A vent shaft, you realize, one of many freckles across the grove, each the oasis's nostril, each keeping the undersand world cool and sure. He loosens the clay cap and a mild exhale tickles your wrist. The desert above is all warm sighs. Down there is a cellar of patience. He pinches a tuft of reed fluff from behind his ear and lets it fall. It drifts downward like a feather that has finally remembered gravity. Good draw, he pronounces. Means the tunnel is clear. You obey the local custom of nodding at wisdom you can feel on your skin. He squints at your reed basket at the brass lamp. Bring the lamp, he decides, already tying a rope around the capstone so it won't wander off. Wicks like patience, tunnels like polite light. A ladder of palm ribs leads you 10, then 12 rungs into cinnamon coolness. The air smells like damp clay and old secrets that are happy to be useful. Your guide's lamp breath voice sets the rhythm. Down, pause, breathe, down. When your feet find the tunnel floor, you stand in a corridor no higher than your shoulder, spine bowing into respect without being told. The roof is held by the stubbornness of the earth itself, and here and there by stones chalked in like quiet shoulders. Water, a handspan wide and ankle deep, sleeks past with the contentment of a cat that knows the sun will return. You don't tell it to hurry, the boy says, as if reading your earlier life. It carries a long appointment. He walks with a sideways stoop, soles whispering. Your lamp throws a soft coin of gold forward. The tunnel takes it and spends it slowly on the curve of walls, the shine on the trickle, and the quiet tails of tiny roots that sip like shy guests through a ceiling crack. Every few paces, a round of sky appears overhead, a vent's light dropping like blessing beads. You stop under one and feel the cool column rinse your face. Breathing holes, he says, for water and for people who forget to. He shows you the gradient with a child's magic. He lays a straight reed on the surface and pats the upstream brim. The reed begins to glide, genteel as a gondola. Not much fall, he says, just enough to remember forward. He raps the wall with the knuckle. It answers with the damp hollow of well-kept mud brick. He raps again where the tone dulls and trims a lip with your trowel, the one you bought as if you had a garden, scraping away a lazy curl that tried to divert the flow. No shouting, he repeats the proverb with a grin. Water kits manners if we do. In a widening of the tunnel, tools rest like sleeping animals, a flat scoop, a reed broom, a sling for hauling silt. He demonstrates. slipping the scoop beneath a heap of settled sand and lifting without clouding the stream. You lift the trouble like a small worry, he says, then cut a hole in your basket and let it fall behind you. He winks. Yes, the market joke made it down here. You help, trading the scoop between you, and the current thanks you by showing a quick silver shoulder. At a junction, the water divides, one vein toward barley, one toward a cluster of palms you've already thanked with your teeth. We keep a schedule under the ground too, he says, pointing to marks scored in the plaster, small notches like the smiles you saw above. 2 notches for the eastern garden at sunrise, 1 at noon for the onions, 3 in the cool for dates. The tunnel keeps the same fairness law as the courtyards. Everyone gets their turn, no one gets all of anything. You think of your breathing at night, how it takes its turn without supervision, and the analogy relaxes your shoulders more than a massage could. The boy kneels where the ceiling sags a thumb too low, pats it, listens with his cheek. We had a crack last year, he says, matter of fact. The dunes tried to borrow our patience. He points upstream where the roof shows a neat scar of stone and clay. We stitched it in lantern light. You imagine it, a line of small suns bobbing, hands passing wet clay, the hush of concentration. Your lamp hums at your wrist, as if remembering it has ancestors. Further on, the tunnel ducks beneath a silt trap. He shows you the physics with palm-sized words. When the flow widens, it slows. When it slows, the heavy grains settle. When the grains settle, the water is light enough to travel again. We ask the water to rest where resting helps, he says, flicking 3 grains into your palm. They sparkle like tiny cooperative stars. A small creature chitters from a crack, probably a gecko having a very organized evening. The sound is less a startle than a punctuation mark, and the tunnel returns to a paragraph of hush. Where the ceiling rises, the boy lets you stand tall. Most travelers walk the surface world, he says, not unkind, but our city is here, quiet. Shade is our roof, yes, but this is our hallway. You try the sentence on your tongue, and it fits. The underground feels like the back of house of a great calm theater where every scene change is about water arriving on time. At the next vent, he gestures up. A circle of sky winks, blue as a promise kept. He braces the ladder and makes you go first. Your lamp pools around your hands, grit nibbles your nails, and the breeze changes note as your head lifts into light. You rise like a slow loaf in the sun. The boy follows, replacing the clay cap with a careful palm. The world above feels brighter but softer, like you've laundered it in patience. Back on the surface, the channel you cleaned speaks a little louder, as if relieved to be understood. The palms nod approval with a sound exactly like pages being turned by someone who knows where the story is going. He smears a neat thumbprint of mud on the capstone, today's signature, then wipes his hands on his tunic. You'll hear caravan bells by evening, he says, listening to a wind you can't yet feel. They usually bring rumors. We prefer repairs. You grin, tucking the trowel into your basket as if it's always lived there. He points you along a shady lane toward a courtyard that smells like mint and bread. Rest, he prescribes, like a doctor who understands shade better than medicine. Patience is a muscle. It gets stronger when you stop proving it. You promise to practice, which probably means tea, a nap against a sun-warmed wall, and letting the tunnel's cool certainty keep running through you even with your eyes closed. The boy taps your brass lamp so it gives a soft ring. For later, he says, and the reed basket on your arm, light as a yes, swings in time with your steps as you walk toward the afternoon's quiet lesson.
A courtyard opens like a cool thought. Vines climb a mud brick wall the color of cinnamon milk, and in the corner a kettle breathes little sighs over a coal pan. Mint is everywhere, crushed under a thumb, rinsed, clapped lightly between palms so the scent steps forward like a friendly guest. You're sat against the warm wall, and the heat slides into your back the way a cat decides your furniture now. Bread arrives, flat, blistered, with that shy crackle that says it remembers fire kindly. You tear with your right hand, cradle with your left, and the rule makes your shoulders drop a full inch. The first tea is honest and a little stern. It edits the dust from your tongue and leaves your mouth ready to agree with good ideas. The second is strong enough to pin your thoughts in place without arguing. The third is a small paragraph of sweetness that lets you put a period at the end of the morning. You mop the plate with bread. A dot of date syrup stays obstinate on your thumb. You consider the ethics of licking it and then remember that ethics are situational, so you do. The grandmother settles beside you, knees a tidy tent, eyes with that sparkle of someone who has watched a lot of sunrises and didn't waste them. She glances at your reed basket and then at the gate. You close the latch? She asks. You realize you didn't. She nods, not scolding, just pleased to have another tiny job for your day. You stand, swing the quiet latch into place, and return to the wall. Courtyards like completed thoughts, she says. You file the proverb away where you keep wicks like patience and don't shout at the water. Sleep sidles up and puts a fingertip on your eyelids. The mud brick's warmth, the mint's hush, the faint drip of a jar cooling in its sleeve of wet cloth. They braid into a lullaby. You try to resist out of habit, then remember you're practicing patience and that naps are, in fact, a form of community service. Your last waking view is the grandmother's hands folding a cloth over the bread, the movement so light it could dust a memory. You wake in the same place but rearranged inside. The courtyard glow has tilted, shade has stepped left. Someone nearby is pitting dates with the soft click of stones leaving sweetness. You sit up slowly because this is a place where even the verbs are gentle. The girl in teal is there, perched on a low stool, carving tiny canals in dry soil on a tray with your new trowel. When she pours a trickle from a cup, the water follows her finger's path. Practice, she declares, for the stubborn corners. She flicks her gaze at your forehead like a joke lands there. You give her a scandalized gasp and she tries not to smile. The grandfather appears with a bowl of olives, their shine like a night sky with its own opinions. He tips a few into your palm. Traveler rule, he says. One for now, one for later, one for the road. You start to ask the difference, then realize that's exactly the point. It's not a difference, it's a rhythm. He sits and ties a knot in a fraying rope, then unties it, then ties it again. Patience is not waiting, he says. It is working slow enough that nothing breaks. The knot seats with a tiny, contented sound. He hands you the rope. You try once, twice. On the third, the knot remembers what it wanted to be. Neighbors slide through the doorway like shade in human shape. A woman brings a small clay whistle shaped like a bird and shows the girl how to call without scaring the real ones. A boy sets down a basket with a hole cut neatly in the bottom and says, straight-faced, "It is for carrying heavy worries." The courtyard laughs, and he grins because he's been waiting all day to use that line on you. You pass the basket around, everyone drops in a pretend concern, cracked shaft, creaky knee, the goat's campaign for more civil liberties, and shakes it so the floor keeps them. Light work, distributed. Someone asks for a story from your roads. You give them a small one about a city where people set alarms to remember to breathe, and the grandmother nods as if you've confirmed her quiet thesis. All deserts are not sand. She folds another proverb into your lap like a cloth. Travel is good when you come back kinder. The girl writes it with a wet finger on the dusty wall, a sentence that stays just long enough to be understood. The conversation wanders like a well-behaved river. An elder quotes the schedule of water allotments, but turns it into an ethic. Share without counting, count only to be fair. Another says, if you arrive to a well and the rope is frayed, you are the person who is meant to mend it. A third offers a gentle mischief. If a goat can learn a latch, you can learn a knot, and everyone looks at the door like it might answer. The proverbs don't sit like statues, they work like tools, passed hand to hand until you've handled each one and understand where it fits. A breeze lifts the edge of a mat and brings the smell of hot stone and palm dust. On it, a rumor rides, the sort that creeps in before bells do. The teen who guided you underground appears at the threshold, head-scarved and purposeful. He doesn't step in out of respect for the room's cool, but his words do. From upriver, he says softly. A shaft there sounds different, maybe only a lip, maybe a crack. No panic, only the small collective inhale of people who know which drawer holds which tool. The grandmother's hand rests on your wrist the way a paperweight keeps letters from wandering. She says, tea first. We fix better when we remember sweetness. So you pour, and everyone drinks, and the courtyard performs that small magic again, where worry is acknowledged, then set carefully on the ground so hands are free. The grandfather counts notches in the air, 2 for sunrise, 1 for noon, 3 for the cool, as if reminding the day of its own manners. The girl pinches a date seam and pops out a perfect stone that lands in your palm like a tiny, obedient planet. Tonight, she says, already smiling at the idea of lanterns, we walk again. Before you stand, the grandmother gives you one more proverb, soft as a folded scarf. Do not carry tomorrow in both hands. Leave one for bread. You tuck it beside the knot, the tea, the latch. You tuck it beside the reed basket and the lamp. You tuck it beside your breathing, which has learned, in this courtyard, to take turns with the world.
Dusk leans in with a violet shoulder, and the first bell reaches you before the camels do. One bright chime, then another, like beads slid along a wire. The sound threads through palm shade and into the square, where mats are retying themselves to evening. You turn with everyone else, and the caravan arrives not as a charge, but as a long, thoughtful sentence. Pads settling without hurry, salt blocks stacked like pale books, men in indigo and russet, walking with that measured sway that says the desert taught them punctuation. The lead handler lifts 2 fingers in greeting. His veil is powdered with old journeys, his eyes soft with the relief of familiar trees. The girl in teal runs to count how many bells, because children here measure distances in music. 9, she reports, serious as a clerk, and one with a cracked ring. The handler laughs. That's Lark, he says, patting a camel who looks like he voted against this very trip and lost. He prefers to complain on the beat. Salt comes first to the ground, slid carefully. Blocks clack and settle, little cliffs of stored ocean. The market shifts to make room. Baskets step aside. A lamp seller's cloth folds back. Dates wait like small suns to ransom thirst. There's no trumpet of trade, just the practiced hush of people who know that arrivals are as delicate as departures. Tea appears at elbow height, bitter first, then strong. and the caravaner's shoulders drop exactly the way yours did after cup 3. News arrives in the same rhythm as salt, placed without drama, meant to last. "Upriver shaft," the leader says quietly to the grandfather, and the square holds its breath just enough to listen. A lip, maybe. The sound is wrong. And south. He tilts his head toward the desert. Even in the blue hour you can taste it now. A thin iron on the tongue. The faintest hiss across the far dunes. "Ghibli rising," he adds. "Wind with a history of testing roofs and tempers." No panic, just the inventory of hands. Knots checked on mats, ladder leaned where poles need a second thought, jars topped before the sand thinks of arguing. The grandmother points with her chin and boys move in twos, the way rills split fairly. The teen who guided you under sand arrives with a coil of rope and competent grin. "The crack can wait for dark," he tells the leader, "when heat isn't boss. We'll carry lanterns. Your men can show us what they heard." The leader taps his temple, impressed, as if the tunnel itself authored the teen's calm. You're assigned the job that fits you now. Soft eyes and steady hands. With 2 older women, you soak palm mats and carry them, cool and heavy, to the cistern lip, where they'll keep the first bite of sand from seasoning the village's water. The reed basket at your hip is promoted to useful, hauling pebbles to weight the edges. Someone places a wet cloth in your hands and says, "For your face if the air turns impatient." Mint breath steps up again, a sleeper, suddenly helpful. Around you, the caravan unlaces itself with tidy grace. Tack is coiled, loads unstacked. A boy walks down the line to cup each camel's nose in his palm briefly, the way you touch a friend's shoulder to say, "You're here, I'm here. The sky can do what it wants." Lark pretends not to enjoy it, then enjoys it. The goat mare sidles in with scandal in his eyes, trying a latch to see if democracy has progressed since noon. A child votes him gently out of the council with a piece of bread. Trade still happens because life refuses to be bullied out of its chores by rumor. Salt for dates, a small brass funnel for a skein of good rope. A story about a well in a far hamlet where the water laughs like bells. You try your hand at a fair price for a length of coarse cloth, good for wrapping jars against heat. And it goes better this time. Fewer baby goat stares, more of a shared joke where you both already know the ending. The vendor tucks an extra handful of cardamom into your palm for luck, or tea, or both, which is how luck usually travels. The leader sits with the elders on the cistern-shaded step, and the conversation folds along familiar creases. Who saw what when? Where the shaft sour-noted? What the wind asked last time it came through? Winds ask simple questions, the grandmother reminds, tightening a tie with 2 clean motions. What is loose? What is light? What refuses to bend? That last one earns a few side eyes at Lark, whose knees are famously opinionated. You pat your brass lamp's lid. Even it seems to nod toward modest flames later. Wicks like patience, winds like humility. The girl presses half a date into your fingers as if to issue you a permission slip for courage. Our water knows we listen, she says, repeating what the teen told her earlier. We'll bring it soft words and good clay. You press the date's sweetness to your tongue and feel the square's temperature of heart rise 1 quiet degree. Also, she adds, pragmatically, we'll stack the baskets. The Ghibli loves a fool's tower. You restack yours accordingly, every mouth down, every handle tucked like a sleeping hand. First rattle comes as a joke. A mat claps once as if applauding the preparations. Second rattle is a reminder. Fronds rub each other with a dry violin whisper. Third is a request to take your scarf seriously. Dust purls along the ground in small scouts. Nothing dramatic, but the air has that yes okay edge, the way a kettle sings before it actually boils. You soak the cloth again and pass it to the lamp seller, who ties it over her jars like bonnets. Wicks like patience, she says, eyeing the horizon, and so do we. There's a last quick sweep. Courtyards, latches, the stubborn corner of one roof mat that always thinks it knows better. You and the teen weight it with a stone whose shape says it was made for this exact conversation. The grandfather tests the cistern cover with his boot heel. The stone answers with a note that sounds like, ready. The leader stands, stretches the day from his back, and points his men toward the shaft's direction with 2 fingers and a plan that keeps nobody alone. Before the wind voices its full opinion, there's time for one more cup. Bitter because the night might ask something of you. The square grows its hush. Eyes find each other and nod. You breathe in for 4, out for 4, because the tunnel taught you a gradient of calm that travels too. Bells lift a little in the rising air and chime like calm punctuation. You touch the reed basket, you balance the lamp, and you tell your shoulders, mountains at breakfast, hills by noon, to be dunes now, shaped by what passes, unbroken underneath.
The first breath of the Ghibli arrives as a suggestion, not a threat. A dry finger lifted to the lips of the grove, a hush that falls sideways, the way a librarian quiets a crowd by simply standing up. You feel it on your forearms before you see it. Hair lifting, sweat evaporating faster than your agreement with this whole wind plan. Fronds begin to rub together, a violin whisper that climbs, and the sky loses one notch of blue at the edges, as if someone is erasing very carefully. The girl in teal ties a cloth over your nose and mouth with the brisk tenderness of a nurse who also does jokes. For the air when it gets too curious, she says. Tapping the knot you already know how to tie, your 3rd try earlier taught your fingers what patience means. The grandmother checks latches with 2 decisive clicks, and the teen guide shoulders rope and looks up at the mats as if reading sheet music. The first gust tests a corner. He is there before the sentence finishes. Thumb on the knot, stone on the hem. Not yet, he tells the wind. You admire the manners. You and your neighbors herd yourselves into the long shade of the square, where poles and mats make a quiet house that can flex like a reed. The brass lamp seller tucks her wicks away, patience later, and sets your lamp on a folded cloth, a little sun not lit but still reassuring. The reed basket earns its promotion again, ferrying pebbles to weigh the edges of tarps and jar covers. Every small task gives the hands something to say besides worry. Someone jokes that heavy problems go in the basket with the hole. A boy pretends to pour his fear of loud noises, and the floor politely collects it. The wind gathers itself, and the grove answers with calm choreography. Mats low, poles braced, jars swaddled with that coarse cloth you bargained for. The teen calls counts, like 1 and like a dance leader, and you all breathe to it. In through the cloth for 4, out for 4, the tunnel's rhythm applied to weather. Palms rattle like soft rain on a roof you trust. Dust comes in scouts across the square, then in a golden smear that makes you feel you are inside a sun-colored thought. A mat slaps hard, a single clap with an opinion. You and the teen move as if rehearsed. He drops the loop over the post, you lean your shoulder into the pole, and the knot you practiced seats with a satisfying of course. The grandfather appears with a stone shaped like compromise, and the wind loses interest. The girl checks your face cloth, tugging once, a small good in the fingers. The grandmother lifts her brows. Tea. The answer is always yes. Bitter first. The cup is a punctuation mark, steadying a long sentence of wind. Stories begin at child height. The lamp seller whispers about a mat that flew like a kite years ago and landed in the barley with all the dignity of an old cat. Lark the camel, safely parked and chewing his opinions into cud, contributes a low grumble that counts as commentary. The goat mayor attempts an unauthorized entry from the lee side and is bribed into governance by a heel of bread. In a corner, the boy who loves latches gives the door a quick demonstration of loyalty, and everyone pretends not to sigh with relief. The Ghibli insists, more grit in the teeth of the air, more hiss at the edge of hearing. Sand taps the mats, a million soft fingers asking, what is loose? What is light? What refuses to bend? You lower your center of gravity and decide not to be an answer to that last one. The teen signals the children into a game. Name the dates by squeeze. Fresh, half-dried, dried. Eyes closed, just fingertips. The square fills with little verdicts. Amber, soft leather, promise stone. The wind can take color from the sky. It doesn't get to take words from the mouth. Someone begins to hum the caravan bell's pattern. 9 and a cracked ring, the girl counts, and the tune finds the square's pulse. You match breath to it. The grandfather taps the cistern cover gently, listening. The stone replies, ready, in that steady note you are starting to love. The grandmother checks a jar's cloth bonnet, reties with quick moves, and pats it like a child who needed only to know someone was looking. A rope end frays under strain. The teen hands it to you with a glance that says, you have this. Your fingers remember the knot from the courtyard, the patient one that doesn't break things. You dress the tail, seat the turns, pull. The rope stops telling you its problems. Good, the teen says. And it is the exact flavor of compliment you came here for. Specific, shared, and already back to work. The wind does its peak. Every storm loves a crest, and the square bows but does not break. The mats shiver, the palms play their dry violins, dust makes halos around ankles. You taste iron and mint and a little triumph. Through the cloth, your exhale sounds like agreement. The brass lamp, unlit, keeps its promise by simply being a small, well-made center of gravity. Wicks like patience, patience likes company. Then the note changes. Storms tire the way arguments do when nobody feeds them. The tap of sand softens, the hiss unthreads into a sigh. A corner of cloud breaks, and the light through it looks like the inside of a date when you split it and hold it to the sun. People begin to stand all the way up. Someone laughs too loudly, then laughs at themselves for the volume. A child peels off their cloth and announces that air tastes normal again, as if they've been promoted. You do a quick inventory. Mats still tied, jars still polite, cistern covered, goat mayor successfully outvoted. The grandmother pours the second tea, strong, and the square drinks to the idea that quiet is a team sport. The leader of the caravan rolls his shoulders and lets the last of the wind out between his teeth. The teen looks to the grandfather. A look returns. Lanterns tonight, after the heat has climbed down from its high horse. The cracked shaft can hear soft, careful hands coming. Before evening truly pours itself, there is sweeping. Palm rib brooms whisper across the ground and across the corners of the mind. The maker who bound them demonstrates 3 measured strokes that collect a drift of dust and the afternoon's leftover fret. You help not to hurry anything, but to finish the thought the storm started. The girl produces a handful of date stones and counts them into your palm. 1 for now,
one for later, one for the road. You smile behind your cloth because now you understand how often the road is here. The square exhales together. Someone reties the cracked bell camel's tasseled lead just because it feels good to fix something small you can fix. A breeze comes, the ordinary kind, and discovers it likes cool courtyards better than performance. The grandmother's last instruction for this chapter of weather is a sentence you'd have framed if frames were practical. We are not the wind, we are the house. You touch the pole you braced, the knot you tied, the lamp you steadied, the basket that let the biggest worries fall through, and you believe her. Night will bring lanterns and careful feet. For now you drink the third tea, sweet, and let the day place a gentle period where it belongs.
Night takes the square in a single, gentle breath, and lanterns blossom along the path like a string of small, steady moons. You light yours with the lamp seller's practiced pinch, wick turned just so, a round flame answering as if it recognizes your face. Wicks like patience, hands like yours. The air is cooler, the Ghibli's temper spent. Fronds whisper apologies to each other overhead. People gather without hurry, each already part of a plan that has been rehearsed since before any of you were born. The teen guide lifts his lantern and nods toward the dark seam of the channel. "We'll listen first," he says, and the caravan leader falls in at his side, rope coiled, shoulders softened by tea and purpose. The grandfather walks with the gait of a man whose knees remember the count tonight. The girl in teal trots between you and the grandmother, carrying a leather water bag that looks determined to be helpful. The cracked bell camel, Lark, kneels in the distance with a huff that translates to, "I will supervise from here." You accept the terms. At the first vent shaft, the teen loosens the clay cap and puts his ear to the round. The tunnel's breath rises, cool, damp, speaking a language your skin now understands. He listens again and shakes his head. Clear. 2 shy cheers, then quiet. At the second, he frowns. The tone is wrong, flat where it should be hollow, as if the ceiling is thinking too hard. Here, he decides, and you steady the ladder while he sets it, palm ribs clicking against the earth like soft teeth finding each other. One by one you descend, grandfather, teen, caravan leader, you, each with a small sun cupped in the dark. The tunnel welcomes you with its clay-cool spine and practical hush. The stream at your ankles glides like it has not been told to worry, but the roof's voice, when the teen taps it, is a little dull, a little heavy. A lip, he says, running fingers along a seam where plaster has slumped and made the water second-guess itself. Not a disaster, just a tired sentence that needs punctuation. You pass the trowel forward, your trowel, bought in the market and already certain of its job. A chain of hands forms without announcement. Clay from a bucket on the ladder, straw from a pouch, water from the girl's bag lowered on a rope, all finding each other in the caravan leader's palm until they become something that can hold shape. Don't shout at the water, the grandfather reminds, voice barely above the glow. We offer it a better memory. The teen grins at you. Organized love, he says, echoing date blossoms. The work becomes a measured song. The teen trims the sagging lip to a clean edge. You brush the channel with a reed broom so the current won't carry grit into the new patch. The leader palms the clay into a ribbon, and you pass it. The grandfather tamps with the flat of his hand, patient beats that sound like a heartbeat you can trust. Overhead, the girl feeds the rope with fresh handfuls, the grandmother counting softly to slow everyone down. 1,
2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, place. A small gecko peeks from a crack and approves the workmanship with a chirp that wouldn't dare be louder than the lanterns. The tunnel's damp walls take the new clay like a promise finally kept. When the seam is dressed, the teen scores notches with his thumb. 2 for sunrise, 1 for noon, 3 for the cool, because fairness is architecture, even underground. He nods once, then taps again. The note is better, a clean hollow, a good vowel. Again, he murmurs, and you pass another ribbon, smoothing where the ceiling had started to forget itself. Elsewhere, a trickle has gathered silt like hesitations. You ease the scoop under it, lifting the small weight whole, the way you were taught to carry worries with a hole in the basket behind you. The water brightens by a shade you can feel on your ankles. The teen sets a pebble like a period at the end of a sentence where the current needs to rest, and then move. He says, "We ask it to pause where pausing helps." And the leader, who has carried salt across weeks of horizon, smiles as if the law works in all languages. The rope twitches twice from above, signal of a gentle check-in. The grandmother's voice floats down the shaft like warm bread. "You are thirsty for praise?" Everyone smirks and works more carefully, which is the answer. You pass tools as if they are lines of a prayer. Clay warms under your fingers, then cools into confidence. Lantern light writes little coins across the water's back. The coins drift downstream to buy a quieter night. When you finally step away from the patched lip, the stream looks eager without being rushed. The teen touches the seam and leaves a fingerprint there, not to claim it, but to sign the promise, "We will keep coming back." He listens to the roof one more time, clear, high, pleased. He says, "Up," softly, and you climb into a night that smells of mint and damp earth and faint triumph. Above, the palms hold their breath with you. The girl ties the bag closed and tries not to bounce with pride. The grandmother taps your cheek with a flower-scented knuckle. The lanterns along the path feel brighter, or maybe your eyes understand them differently now. "Cistern?" the leader asks, and heads turn as one. You follow the channel's silver whisper through the grove, lanterns bobbing in a kindly constellation. At the edge of the square, the cistern waits under its stone lid, the cover warm from the day, but now calm under stars. The grandfather rests his palm on it and listens like a man in love with a single note. "Ready?" he asks. The teen slides the lid aside by inches. People fall silent in the way that feels like a group holding a bowl for the same pour. For a breath, the world is only listening. The sound arrives like a new word you already understand. A clear silver trickle stepping into the cistern's dark throat. A ribbon becomes a thread, becomes a small, sure stream. Someone laughs in relief and then clamps it, and then laughs at clamping it. The girl squeezes your hand so hard that the date stones inside your pocket register an opinion. The cracked bell on Lark gives one soft, approving clink all the way across the square, as if even he concedes that water returning is worth commentary. No one shouts. You cheer like people who know sound carries differently at night, shoulders loosening, palms touching briefly, a soft chorus of "ah" that could be mistaken for wind in the fronds. The grandmother pours cups, and the bitter tastes like celebration, because it arrives after work well done. The teen wipes clay from his knuckles and draws a quick star with the damp on the cistern rim. "Stories, then schedule," the grandfather says. "We'll set turns fair as the sky." Heads nod around the lantern glow. You cap the lamp, and the wick sighs into a curl of smoke that smells like good endings. The square breathes out together, that team sport again. Your reed basket hangs easy at your side, carrying nothing but lightness. Down in the tunnel, the patch will settle and strengthen while you sleep. Up here, the palms retake their violin whisper, now tuned. And inside your chest, another cistern, newly mended, accepts its first bright pour.
Morning wakes the grove with a soft, sugar-colored grin, and the square answers by putting on its party voice, quiet but certain. Mats become banners, cords strung a little higher so shade turns festive, and dates appear everywhere like polite constellations. First fruit deserves ceremony, the grandfather tells you, and you nod as if you've always known that a year pivots on a small, sticky hinge. Women carry trays that travel like suns, fresh dates beading light, half-dried ones folded with good intentions, dried ones knuckled into tidy sweetness. The lamp seller buffs her brass moons until each reflects a wobbly parade of faces. Wicks like patience, she says, handing you a taper for later, and festivals like kind timing. The girl in teal smuggles a date into your palm before the official tasting, the international sign for, I trust you to do the wrong thing first. You bite. It tastes like a promise kept while you slept. Music arrives from 3 directions at once, a frame drum murmuring heartbeat, a reed flute telling the shade what the breeze already knows, and a chorus of hands clapping on elbows and jars. Steps start small, a swaying along the cistern ledge that careful feet rehearsed last night while listening for water. The cracked bell camel, lark, watches from his supervisory post with an expression that suggests cultural critique. The goat mare is tied with a courtesy loop near the broom maker, who has pre-swept the dust so the dances can edit only joy. Before the first circle forms, the elders lift cups, not tea this time, but water, bright and cold from the patched vein you help smooth. Everyone drinks with both hands, so no one can argue while blessing the day. The grandmother drizzles a ribbon of date syrup onto bread and hands you a piece like she's writing your name on the morning. Share without counting, she reminds, and the square does exactly that. Sticky fingers, laughing apologies, one more bite for the child who danced like a shaken reed. Then the girl taps the rope belt hanging from the date seller's pole, and the market's hum drops a note. Climb when the air is kind, the teen guide intones, checking knots with that unhurried competence that taught the tunnel how to exhale. It is kind, blue rinsed clean, wind humbled into a breeze that minds its manners. The grandfather picks up the curved knife, weighs it in his palm, and passes it to you handle first, as if passing a story that must be told carefully. The belt sits around your waist like a polite responsibility. The trunk's old leaf bases make notches your toes can trust. The girl ties your foot loop with the knot you learned in the courtyard. Patient, nothing breaks. Thumbs forward, heels whisper, the teen says. Someone below hums the caravan bell's pattern, 9 and the cracked ring, as if it were a breath metronome. You climb, not to outpace fear, but to give it a nicer view. The bark's ridges press their slow calendar into your soles. Your legs file a gentle complaint and then sign a labor agreement. Halfway up, you pause in a pocket of cool air where the fronds sift light into coins. You can see the square as a diagram of care. Mats tugged taut, jars bonneted, the cistern's lid resting like a patient cloud. Faces tipped up, turmeric, teal, indigo, each a small lantern.
The lamp seller, hands on hips, mouths, "Wicks like patience," and you decide to move like a steady flame. The last reach is a quiet conversation between you and gravity. The tree votes yes, and you arrive. Up here, the date crown is a city of amber rooms. Male blossoms shed their chalky moon dust in a little basket. Female crowns lean with an organized longing. You touch the pollen the way you touch the first word of a letter. The teen, already up another trunk like a kindly cat, nods, and you shake the lightest breath of powder through your fingers, a blessing disguised as botany. "Love but organized," you whisper, and the tree forgives your accent. Cutting the cluster is like telling a well-timed joke, not too soon, not too late, a clean slice that lets weight fall into the waiting looped rope. Below, hands guide the fruit to a soft landing on a piled shawl. Someone cheers, then remembers that cheering travels, and converts it into the more appropriate collective grin. You tuck a small subcluster into your belt for the ceremonial descent and begin down, toes finding the story in reverse. The girl stands ready, palms out, as if you're a bread from the oven and she's guarding you from your own steam. Feet on ground, you are fed water first, because knees are better at gratitude when tongues can form sentences, and then a half-date broken for two, you and the teen. The grandfather inspects the knife's edge, inspects you, and nods both approvals. You returned what you borrowed. He meant courage and calm and the tree's trust. The girl lifts the subcluster like a small chandelier, and with a flourish deposits it into your reed basket. For the road, she decides, and for now and for later. The festival spills outward, soft dancing around the palms. Children play date relay, one fresh, one half-dried, one dried, learning names with their mouths. A woman teaches you the art of pitting without tearing the seam, then stuffing with crushed almonds and a whisper of salt from the caravan's pale books of ocean. The bite is ridiculous in the most polite possible way. You suggest that if justice were edible, it would taste like this. People pretend to think about it and then agree. Stories orbit the cistern. An elder recounts the year of 2 winds when mats were re-knotted 3 times in one afternoon and the goat mayor was briefly impeached for jumping a schedule. Laughter edits the tale into a lesson about flexible roofs and kinder leashes. The caravan leader teaches a clapping pattern from far north. Hands learn it the way water learns a new bed, slow, then sure, then inevitable. When the sun tips into its honey part of the day, the date seller invites you to the tasting judge's duty. Declare which tray tastes like the first story of the season. You close your eyes. Fresh is a bell rung next to your cheek. Half-dried is a door pushed open onto a remembered room. Dried is a pocket-sized vow. Portable, useful, serious about joy. You pick half-dried for the way it remembers both the tree and the road. The square hums approval, perhaps because that answer lets everyone be right in turn. As light thins, brass lamps are finally lit, not for repair now, but for celebration. Coins of gold drift across faces and settle into eyes. The lamp seller pinches your wick a touch lower, the perfect small stewardship. "See," she says, pointing at the flame's round little breath. "You don't have to be large to be steady." Around you, dance becomes walking, walking becomes lingering, lingering becomes the night's first yawn politely turned into a smile. On the way out of the square, the broom maker slips you a palm rib fan bound in turmeric and teal. "For the corners the wind forgot," he says. The girl hooks your reed basket into the crook of your arm,
tucks the brass lamp against your wrist and steers you toward the path as if guiding a boat into a current. The goat mayor, released with honors, makes a last attempt on an unsecured latch and is gently debated into ethics by 3 small hands. Lark contributes a single satisfied clink. The palms sigh the word you've been hearing under everything: enough. For now, enough. You look back once. Shade is the roof. People are the house. The house glows. You carry its light away without dimming it, date sweet and lamp warm and very nearly weightless.
Night spills velvet over the palms, and the square rearranges itself into a hush, with chairs of woven cord, low stools, and rolled mats that know when to become beds. Lanterns are lowered, wicks pinched to round, calm coins. You set your brass lamp by your knee, and the flame makes a small room on your skin. A child yawns and tries to hide it behind a date. The date loses. The cracked bell camel lark settles just beyond the shadow line with a supervisory groan that says the council may proceed. Elders arrive with simple instruments that look like toys until you see how the night listens to them. A cord with a knot at a measured distance, a stick to pin a shadow, a shell with notches along its lip. The grandfather carries the last, your favorite, because each notch is a promise that water will remember fairness. The teen guide kneels at his side, sand-dusted notebook open, charcoal ready, posture like a reed that has learned both flex and purpose. The girl in teal and a small troop of cousins settle at your feet with scandalous seriousness, as if they are here to vote on the moon. The Water Council begins the way good songs begin, quietly, with a line everyone already knows. The grandmother points her chin at the sky, where a familiar bright point drifts toward the shoulder of a palm. When that one touches the fronds, she says, it is the hour for the eastern gardens. The teen draws the star and the palm in simple strokes, then marks 2 notches, sunrise's share, even at night, because the schedule is like weaving. You always see the whole cloth. The caravan leader, invited to speak, reports that a far north spring is laughing louder this season. The elder assigns a thin line of extra flow on the shell's rim to be saved in the cistern at moon-half. Reserve is a kind of love. Voices stitch the plan with the same calm you felt in the tunnel. Barley 2 fingers at dawn, one says. Onions 1 finger at noon, says another. Dates 3 when heat closes its mouth, the grandfather concludes, thumb scoring the familiar smile marks in a slab of wet clay. A widow's small plot is named aloud, then an orphaned boy's sapling date. Fairness counts the quiet first, the grandmother reminds, and the shell receives a soft additional notch that glints like mercy. A storyteller slides forward, a man with laugh lines carved by wind and audiences, his indigo veil slung back. He does not announce himself. He simply breathes in time with the lamps and begins. Caravan news becomes a cape he drapes around the evening so it doesn't chill. A salt road where the dunes tried to write their own rules and were argued into grammar by patient feet. A village where the goat mare staged a referendum on door latches and lost by a whisker. A star that hid behind cloud just long enough to teach a child how to listen for water without looking. He uses your repair as a bright thread, weaving last night's clay into today's promise. They did not shout at the water. They offered it a better memory, and it remembered. Children's heads tilt against shoulders, then slide down into laps that become pillows. The girl in teal fights the good fight against sleep, loses with dignity, and ends up using your reed basket as a very fine hat.
You bees it off, tuck it under her arm, and she holds it the way travelers hold maps in dreams. The storyteller catches this and folds it into the tale without pointing. He murmurs, "A basket for secrets with a little hole for worries, so the ground may keep what we do not need to carry through the night." The teen reads the next item, voice low. "We felt a dullness at the second vent. The lip is mended." An elder nods and makes the sky part of the record, drawing a line from a particular bright cluster to the vent's location. A star map married to a water map. "When that rises there," she says, "the tunnel will ask for eyes again in 3 nights." Your chest recognizes the comfort. Vigilance without panic. Attention without drama. Wicks like patience. Schedules like kindness. The storyteller tilts the story to tomorrow, as if turning a jar to catch the last light. "At first light," he says, "and your heart knows the road already, a traveler in indigo with a russet sash will walk the edge of the grove and carry our roof in their chest." You glance down at yourself and, okay, maybe your wardrobe has become part of the lore. He nods at your lamp. "They will take a small son that learned manners, and a basket that learned to let go." A child hums the caravan bell's pattern, 9 and the cracked ring. And the cracked ring answers faintly from Lark, who is incapable of missing his cue. Around the circle, proverbs settled like shawls. Do not carry tomorrow in both hands. If you can be gentle, you can be stronger longer. Share without counting, count only to be fair. Each one is a tool passed to you, the way the trowel moved along the tunnel. You feel heavier with the good weight of them, and lighter with the hole in the basket part that lets worries sift to the friendly ground. The council writes the week on palm ribs tied with thread. Who lifts which mat, who checks which latch, who listens to what vent. The teen presses the damp rib into your palm for the last task. Walk the perimeter at dawn, he says. Say goodbye to corners. We keep edges soft. You tuck the rib beside your lamp, feeling both commissioned and calmed. The grandfather signs the shell's newest notch with his thumbnail, a crescent within a crescent, and closes a meeting by pouring water that has just learned a wider path. Everyone drinks with both hands, not as ritual now, but as gratitude that tastes clean. The storyteller lands on a whisper. Shade is the roof. People are the house. Stars are the windows that never close. The lamps get a last quiet pinch. Flames turn to sleep. Children are carried like warm bread to mats lined up along the wall. Your girl drools one polite dot on her sleeve and never knows. Lark lets out a sigh that sounds suspiciously like applause. The goat mare dreams of ethical latch policy near the broom maker's door. You tip your lamp to darkness, and the night settles, arranged, watered, scheduled, storied, ready to pour you gently toward the pale margin where morning waits with soft footprints.
Dawn arrives like a secret told to those who were gentle last night. The sky dissolves from indigo to the palest blue, a shade you could drink. Air moves through the palms with that fresh book smell, pages turning themselves. You pinch your lamp's wick high enough to make a coin of gold for the path and low enough to keep the morning from blinking. Wicks like patience, and patience likes first light. The teen's palm rib assignment is still tucked in your sash. You start the perimeter walk at the far date row, where the sand tries its old comedy of nudging into the gardens. Your trowel, funny how it has become unquestionably yours, neatens one small lip. A rill remembers forward. You tap a vent cap. It answers with the hollow yes of a well-rested tunnel. A gecko,
graduate of the night shift, blinks at you and files a positive report. You move along walls that know your shoulder by now, touching latches that click like courteous thoughts. The broom maker is already awake, whisking 3 measured strokes across the square to tidy off the wind's last punctuation. "Corners soft?" he asks, like a physician. You nod, and he hands you a little hand fan bound in turmeric and teal. "For the road's warm sentences," he says, and returns to the ground's grammar. At the cistern, the stone lid is cool enough to rest a palm. The grandfather stands with the caravan leader, both men listening to the note you've come to trust. Clear. Bright. The leader tips you a salute that means you're written into the map now. Lark, the camel, off duty, arranges his long face into the expression of someone granting a festival day to the entire civil service. The cracked bell gives one discreet clink. Appointment kept. In the square, mats drowse low, ropes still behaving after their lively evening. The lamp seller polishes nothing for once, just rolls a wick between thumb and forefinger, as if checking the morning for steadiness. She reaches beneath her cloth and brings out a travel lamp, smaller than yours, brass with a modest belly, and a lid that says it won't gossip in your pack. "For going where our roof can't reach," she murmurs, lowering your flame and coaxing it into the new lamp with a kiss of fire. "It knows our manners." She slides a paper twist of extra wicks into your palm. "Remember, small flame, round breath." You thank her with both hands, so you can't argue with gratitude. The teen in teal appears with a yawn still tied to her cheek, hair scarfed sideways in the precise style of people who woke smiling. She touches your reed basket, looks theatrically appalled at a scuff, and then tucks behind a stall. When she returns, the basket has been swapped, same weight in the hand, but the weave is subtly tighter, stravel stitch visible if you know where to look. The broad-shouldered vendor follows and thumps the rim with his thumb. "For roads," he says. "No hole unless you cut it." He grins, remembering. The girl drops 3 date stones into your palm, one for now, one for later, one for the road. Currency of courage. You go on with your rounds. Courtyards in their linen of shade, doors breathing cool, the fig tree nodding you past like a kindly usher. The grandmother is there at her threshold, breadcloth folded, teapot at the shy bubble. She watches you stand and look, not hurrying your eyes, letting them pack without stuffing. "Courtyards like completed thoughts," she reminds, and you feel the sentence click closed. She wraps 2 still warm flats in a scrap of indigo and tucks them into your basket beside the fan. "Share without counting," she adds, then sneaks in a facelle of goat cheese under the cloth with all the stealth of a saint. Neighbors ripple through your goodbye like a soft tide. The boy who loves latches demonstrates his favorite, click, lift, click, and you applaud like you're at a grand theater. The teen guide steps from a seam of shade with rope coiled, the universal badge of an optimist. "We'll listen 3 nights hence," he says of the tunnel, giving you a date with water you won't keep in person, but will keep in breath. He taps the palm rib strip you still carry. "Edges are soft. You did right. It's the best stamp a passport ever had." A last small procession forms without anyone naming it. Reed baskets on hips, brooms return to their hooks, brass lamps dimmed to shy embers, The people of the house walk you toward the grove's edge. The goat mayor is briefly permitted to escort and attempts to legislate the pace. He is countered by a handful of children who understand parliamentary procedure. Lark the camel, off duty, arranges his long face into the expression of someone granting a festival day to the entire civil service. The cracked bell gives one discreet clink. Appointment kept. Under the tallest palm, the one whose crown you visited, hang the rope belts, like stories drying in the sun. The grandfather chooses a slender loop and presses it into your hands. Not for climbing now, he says, for remembering. Love, but organized. You wind it once around the new basket's handle. It looks exactly like a promise that means to be kept. The girl points your shoulders toward the pale line where grove becomes open day. Walk slow, she says, repeating his very first instruction to you, the one your feet have secretly known since you tasted cold water. She tucks a date, half-dried, the taste of both tree and road, into your mouth with the solemnity of a ceremony that also happens to be delicious. Right when you arrive, she says, then remembers writing is not how this place behaves, and amends, think in our direction sometimes. You stand there a minute longer than is necessary, which turns out to be exactly necessary. The palms exhale their cool warning breath across your face and through your ribs, like an instrument tunes not just its strings, but the room. Water murmurs a calm noon you haven't reached yet. The wind, now polite, lifts the edge of the square's shade and shows you a carpet of light that points like a gentle arrow. You breathe for 4 and out for 4. You touch the fan, the bread, the cheese, the lamp, the rope loop, the trowel's sensible weight, the tighter weave of the road basket, the extra wicks like tiny scrolls of patience. Shade is the roof, people are the house. You carry both like a roofline drawn inside your chest. When you finally step, it is not so much as away as with. The grove does not vanish behind you. It walks a little way in your bones, keeping pace with your shoulder. Don't shout at the water, you remind the day, and cut a hole in the basket when worries get heavy. The girl salutes with 2 fingers. The grandmother presses her knuckles to your forearm. The grandfather lifts his chin. The teen tips his rope. The lamp seller's small son sits balanced, round, and patient. You promise aloud, quietly, by their style, to return when the stars write the way back. And the grove, being well-mannered, pretends to be surprised and very pleased.
You take the ancient track the way a page turns, quietly, with one thumb holding the place you came from. Palms thin behind you, the grove tapering to a green whisper, then a memory stitched to your ribs. The new road basket rides easy at your hip. The rope loop is wound once around its handle like a promise. The travel lamp sits warm against your wrist, wick pinched low, carrying a coin of manners more than light. Bread and a small proud cheese rest under indigo cloth. 3 date stones drum a soft code in your pocket. Now, later, road. And your breathing keeps the tunnels count. In for 4, out for 4, so the day doesn't hurry you into forgetting. The track bears prints you know now. Wide, deliberate camel pads, goat hoof embroidery, the faint scrawl of a gecko making poetry no one needs to read to love. In a dip,
Last night's wind has written temporary dunes across the path, but you've learned the trick of edges. Fan in one hand, trowel in the other, you soften the ridge, coax a small glide where a step would have been sharp, and the road thanks your ankles by being reasonable. You crest a low rise and pause without deciding to. The grove below arranges itself into a sentence you'll keep repeating. Shade is the roof, people are the house. Mats, poles, cistern, courtyards, fronds, that quiet grammar. You could swear you hear a tiny cracked bell agree from Lark's general direction, and, because the mind is generous, the goat-mare chooses this exact moment to bleat a final policy suggestion. You grin into the breeze, and it files your smile under compliance. Excellent. Heat begins its patient climb. You walk in the seam between sun and your own moving shade, fan whispering, lamp cool. Far to your right, a vent shaft freckles the flats, a solitary mouth to a quiet hallway you'll think of whenever a day needs a better memory. You pass it with the same respect you'd give a sleeping elder. Not tiptoeing exactly, just being good. In your pocket, the stones click. Now. You split a half-dried date, taste both tree and road, and share half with the air, which counts as extravagant hospitality in certain philosophies you're proud to belong to. At a dry gully, you sit on a friendly stone and unwrap bread. Goat cheese breaks with the modest sigh of foods that know they're welcome anywhere. You invent a schedule because the council taught you how. 2 bites for the eastern garden of your hunger, 1 bite for onion honesty at noon, 3 generous bites for the cool. You drink from your skin of water with both hands so you can't argue with your good fortune. For dessert, you make a ceremony of nothing. Quiet, breath, a small round flame you don't need to light to feel accompanied. The day slides forward. A trader passes, leading 1 camel that looks like Lark's cousin who went to art school. You trade a story for a story, his about a dune that learned to behave, yours about a rope that became a memory, and the exchange rates are excellent. He admires your basket's travel stitch, offers cardamom from his pouch for luck or tea or both, and leaves a blessing that fits in your pocket with the stones. By mid-afternoon, the world hums like a kettle about to speak. You feel the old reflex to shout at time, and you answer with a hole in the basket. You imagine worry dropping straight through to the road, where it becomes dust like everything that ever pretended to be permanent. The relief is practical, almost funny. You tighten your scarf, take 4 soft steps of shade with your fan, and think in their direction. Somewhere the girl is tying a knot twice and patting it once. Somewhere the teen is tapping a vent cap and hearing a good vowel. Somewhere the grandmother is making a proverb fit a child like a shirt. Somewhere the grandfather is listening to the cistern say, "Ready," and somewhere the lamp seller is rolling a wick into a round breath and smiling because a flame remembered to be small and steady. Evening leans down from its saddle. The horizon pinks like a shy admission. You set the lamp on a flat rock and coax the wick. It wakes with that courteous gold you've come to trust. Wicks like patience. You arrange the fan as a windbreak, tear the last of the bread, and taste the day's fairness settle in your shoulders. With the tiniest knife, you cut the rope loops fray and reseat the knot the teen taught you. Nothing breaks. Your hands remember clay and water, shadow and shell, salt and song. You have walked away without leaving. You are not the wind, you are the house you carry. Night comes unafraid. Stars open like windows that never close. You draw the indigo cloth over your knees, pin the lamp low, and lie back on a piece of the ancient track that has never minded being a bed. In the hush, the oasis tips itself forward inside you like a jug. Cool shade, date sweet, lantern light. Until your breath is a cistern, your thoughts are palm fronds, your pulse is a small repaired stream that keeps its appointment with sleep. The road keeps going. So do you. Tomorrow. For now, you close your eyes on a village that is somehow in front of you and inside you at once, and you drift with the feeling of being waved after by many gentle hands, all of them sure you'll find your way whenever the stars decide to write you home. You are safe. You are held. You rest. Let the edges soften now, the way the broommaker taught you. 3 quiet strokes across the corners of your mind, small arcs that gather the leftover grit of the day and carry it to the door, where it becomes nothing more than dust that doesn't need a name. Feel your eyelids turn to fronds, heavy in the nicest way, lowering themselves with that papery whisper, dropping shade over every bright thought until the thoughts are calm and cool and willing to wait until morning. Breathe as the tunnel breathes, shallow and even, patient with its own rhythm. In for 4, out for 4, and if you lose the count, that's fine. Fairness is not a test, it's a kindness. Imagine a little cistern in your chest, repaired and smooth, receiving a clear trickle with a sound that says ready, 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 and there is more than enough. Set the lamp of attention low. Let the wick be round and small and steady. You do not need a large flame to be kept company through the night. Somewhere, very far and very near, a cracked bell gives one soft clink to say, everything that needed doing today has been done as far as today could carry it. Tomorrow can travel its own miles. Tonight belongs to rest. If any thought feels heavy, slip it into the road basket and notice the hole at the bottom, the one made on purpose, the one the ground kindly keeps open. Feel the weight pass through and away. What remains is light enough to sleep with. You are walking still, but without moving. You are returning while you lie perfectly still. Shade is the roof. People are the house, and the house you carry is quiet now, with windows of starlight and a floor of soft breath, and every room is yours, and every room is safe. End of story. Sweet dreams.